Synthetic biology has several interesting and important challenges. The first is what you choose to explore, what you choose to investigate, what problem is chosen. And I think that really directs it. If we're using synthetic biology for trivial or decorative uses, I think it's not really worth the time and the money. If you're directing it towards the plight of people in abject poverty, towards children, towards the oppressed, towards the excluded, the marginalized, the wounded, the vulnerable, suffering, all of those things, that's the point of science. That's why science, especially medical research, is worth the extraordinary social cost of its production. And that's why science isn't art or even decorative architecture. It is something that seeks a higher goal, purpose, meaning. And that is ultimately to transform a condition of suffering into a condition of human flourishing. So choosing the goal and making sure your goal is a right goal, a righteous goal, a goal that makes the world more just, more humane, that's the first challenge. Second challenge is how you do the science once your goal is chosen. The obvious things about lab integrity and safety and gender equality, that usually goes fairly well in science. But every now and then there's the temptation to push one another aside for the publication or the fame, the glory, right? And that has to be rethought. How can the process of synthetic biology reflect our best vision of how human beings work in collaborative teams? That's why IGEM is so important, because it stresses the team approach so much. The third thing is, when you put forward your product, are you absolutely truthful about success and failure? You can learn a lot from failure. That's why we call it science and not technology. Technology would just be merely producing the thing along already known pathways. True science, true investigative research is about failing just as much as it's about succeeding. But you have to be very honest about total failure and make sure you publicize failure. What didn't work? Why? That's important too. So that's the honesty and the forthrightness with which you pursue your goal is critically important. Then you present your product to the world, or your idea to the world, and hopefully your little synthetic critter to the world. Who does it go to? Who does it serve? In what way does it make the world a better, stronger, more humane place, a place with less suffering? Who distributes the product? How is that distribution done? Is it just the marketplace? Should there be regulation? Those are that's just the normative questions. Then there's deeper, what we call ontological questions. What does it mean to make a new thing? What does it mean for us on a philosophical, on a religious level? Should those questions even emerge? Creation is really quite different from manipulation, but why and in what way? Why is that understood as different? Does all the research you do fundamentally act as a disruptive force in society? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Perhaps it's a good thing that science disrupts society, disrupts social norms. We've come a long way as along the path of human inquiry, and a lot of that's been pushed by science. What kind of constraints does that leave us with if everything is up for exploration and for exposure? So those are questions that we call properly ontological. What does this work make of me? How am I transformed by this work? How is my society transformed? So those are interesting ideas that you have to think about as well.